Representative Ehlers, how are you?
Good, Matt. How you doing today?
I'm doing well, sir. So my father-in-law came into town, and I told him, I was like, dude, I got this guy on the AI committee for Idaho, and sent him to your episode, because he's always asked me, he's like, what do you think? I'm like, I don't know. Nobody knows what's going to happen with AI. Like, that's the whole point. It's this like nebulous topic, but that's not the only thing you've been doing this entire session, because you've been on the AI committee. There are a lot of questions with that, but you've actually been doing real policy, either like transparency policy, tax policy, things of that nature. Talk to me about some of these.
Right. Yeah. So one of the ones that got a lot of attention came to be known as the Gangster Tax bill, which doesn't have anything to do with gangsters.
Kind of does. Kind of does. Idaho's a little bit gangster in this one.
We are in this one. So it stems from all the angst around the Lava Ridge windmill projects and feeling like the federal government's forcing that upon us and the local community doesn't want it. So we kind of brainstormed away like, okay, what can we do? And we got creative.
Because again, for the background, when you have federal lands, the Bureau of Land Management can select areas to be like, hey, we're going to work. We, the federal government and BLM, are going to collaborate with a private industry to install a project on this land, even if the benefit is not going to Idaho. Because in the case of Lava Ridge, no one in Idaho wanted it, but it was federal lands. They were going to lease that land or work with a private energy company that was going to pump the energy unceremoniously to Southern California. It's like, you're just parking your dump truck on my front yard and just like, I'm sucking in the exhaust. Anyway.
Yeah.
So like that was a problem.
Really well. Yeah. That's a good recap of it. So it's a problem, and the locals didn't want it. And so we got creative with, I don't need to go into tax policy too much, but an excise tax. There's a lot of things we can't do on federal land as a state, including like property tax on it. The federal government controls that, but an excise tax works. And so basically, I think it was $25,000 per each foot of height of the windmill. So an average windmill came to be around like $2.5 million per windmill of tax, which would about double the cost of each windmill.
This is so gangster.
So
wait, Idaho. So Idaho decided we're going to levy a $25,000 excise tax on every single foot of the windmill. Some of the Lava Ridge windmills were going to be over 700 feet.
Yeah, they were going to be huge. And so, so that bill hasn't passed. It's sitting there right now, but that was the idea. And so, Representative Hill, I don't know if you have him on the show yet, but
I love Representative
He's
Hill.
great. He's got some great stories. I won't share all his stories, but if you get him to share them, there's some great stories.
Yeah.
So he asked me, he's like, so are we going all gangster on this? And I was like, well, I don't think I've ever been accused of being a gangster.
Oh my God.
And then the chairman was like, this is gangster. So
it became the Gangster Tax.
Yeah, the Gangster Tax. And so basically, so what it does is it puts it to a vote of the people in that local county, so you actually have a say. And if the people approve of the project, no gangster tax, right? Okay, they want it, great, they can have it. But if they don't want it, then the tax is going to go into place. And
this is the most legit local control ever. This is, so you can't stop the project if the federal government is pushing it through. Yeah. They do have to take public comment. They do not have to listen or work with you at all. So you're like, all right, hold my beer.
Yeah.
$2.5 million tax per windmill.
Yes. It would bring in,
that's cool.
I calculated like $3.5 billion if Lava Ridge ever went through to the state. Now, granted, our state general fund budget's like $5.4 billion. So this would be pretty big. And it would go, I wrote it to go to property tax relief. Particularly, it would start with that area. So if you get the windmills in your backyard, you get property tax relief. Well, their property tax budgets, that would last them like 300 years in that for it to go through that much. So I think we gave them like 30 years of property tax relief. Sure. Don't have to pay property taxes. The rest would go to the state, and we could spread it out for property tax relief, particularly through what we've done with the school facilities fund, using property tax relief to help the schools.
So roughly 10% would go to the immediate area.
Yeah.
And then the other 90% would go. I mean, how much do we collect in property tax annually anyway?
That's a good question.
Like statewide, like if our budget's $5-something billion and we're about to distribute $3 billion in property tax relief, like that is an astronomical sum of property tax relief.
That's a large amount of money.
That's a large. So. Maybe we should attract some windmills.
Well, yeah, that's the thing too. If they come here, then I mean, Wyoming in a sense sort of pays for a lot of their schools and everything through gas tax and their other natural resources that they have, they tax those and it pays for a bunch of things. So that's sort of a similar concept here as well. If we decide to go the win route, then let's benefit from it as Idahoans.
And to be clear, that's a private company. If the people if the people of Idaho are like, hey, this benefits us, especially the surrounding area, like no sweat, maybe I don't love it, but I can see the benefit to me, whatever, fine. Then that excise tax is not, lobbied against them. But if they're like, no, we don't want this, and we put it to a vote, and they're like, yeah, you can come in. Just make sure you park that $3 billion at the door. That is, you know what, man, there have been a lot of hard pills to swallow this session. Not that I know anything about what's right or wrong in the long run. I look at some things, I'm like, gosh, man, that sounds rough. Or like, gosh, I can understand why people are upset about this. This one is like, I've had to wait all session to hear this bill. This is fantastic. So where is it right now? Is it in committee?
It's in committee. I think, so we're getting close to the end of the session. I don't know when you're going to air this. Maybe we'll be out by then, maybe not. But I think it's going to have to do some revision during the summer, and we'll see what it looks like when we come back.
Wait, what do you mean? Let's get it out right now. Come on, man. So let's call Representative Hill right now. I'll call him live on the air. It's fine. I'm going to call him right now.
Oh, that'd be fun. Actually, he's gone. Well,
dang it, man.
He's out of. I can't say where he's at.
Okay.
He's out of town.
Representative Hill is an interesting guy because he'll disappear for like secret briefings and like Top Gun training and all kinds of different things that he cannot tell anybody about. And then he has a sub.
It's his brother
Max,
right now.
Oh,
Max
brother.
Brown sometimes subs.
Yeah.
I think he's been on your show too.
No, I haven't had the pleasure of meeting Max.
Max is a really smart guy. So,
I've heard.
Yeah,
I've heard both Ted and Max are bald. At least that's what the Facebook picture looks like.
It's true.
It's true.
Ted's brother's going right now for him, subbing.
Oh, that's great. How's he doing? Good?
It's a good dude.
Second Representative Hill.
Yeah.
It's a good time. All right. Well, that one is like a shining star. I hope to God that one gets passed. That would just be like a big win for everybody.
I think so.
Like everybody in Idaho.
Except if you're a windmill company, I guess. But
you know what, dude? Okay. But work with Idaho. Just articulate the value. You know what is interesting? I've been thinking about this a lot. There's a shifting in our national consideration for action. Okay. You remember Uncle Sam, like the picture of like Uncle Sam needs you. It's like there used to be a sentiment towards collective action for a collective good that people understood, and they were roused to action through that idea. We have in some way become so polarized that collective action doesn't mean anything to us anymore. And we are going to have to start reframing or articulating or finding individual value propositions for action. For instance, try this one on for size. You got a 65-year-old constituent sitting right there. And he's like, hey, Rep. Ehlers, I never even had kids. I went to private school. Why should my tax dollars go to public school? What do you tell him?
That's a fair point. I think part of it is you can look at education in general, right? That we all get some benefit from having a better educated society.
What is that? He's saying, articulate the benefit to me right here, right now.
So I wish I could quote the Constitution by memory, but our Idaho Constitution talks about being a well-educated people so we could keep our foundational principles, so we can hold to our constitutional values. If everybody understands freedom, understands the role of government, I think as a society, we're better off.
Well, you could explain that to me in 15 minutes. I don't need to pay for a 12-year education. What's my benefit? I got one for you.
Okay.
I got one. I'd never heard it said this way. Phil Gore came in. He's a chief learning officer for the Idaho School Boards Association. He was like, you know the answer? Do you want to be robbed or have prostitutes in your front yard? I was like, no. He's like, well, here's the problem. Here's the problem. If you're 65, let's say you're going to live for 20 more years. If a kid is born right now and there's no public education system and his parents are either incapable of homeschooling or affording private school, what options will that person have when they reach the age of 18? If they can't read, they can't write, they can't do math, they haven't taken CTE programs where they're pipe welding, they're, doing auto mechanic, they're in culinary arts, they're in all of these different things. That person will not have a value to offer society. They will not have diverse or articulatable skill sets in the absence of some kind of base education. And that will lead to drugs, theft, and prostitution. So if you don't want to get robbed by some 15 or 16 or 17-year-old when you're like, I don't know, 82 and can't defend yourself, and these young people have no options because they don't have diverse skills and they don't have marketable skills, then you better invest in a public education system. When he said that, I was like, holy cow, there it is. Same thing. Try this one on for size. You have kids, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not going to ask you if you got them vaccinated, but what I will tell you is, do you know the value proposition for the mumps vaccination?
I don't think I've ever been asked that question before.
Right.
Do I know the value proposition for the monks? Well, I mean, there's mumps.
Yeah. Not monks, not Representative Monks. He does not have a vaccine.
Does he have a vaccine? We should name one after
him.
Right. Herd immunity. That might be my closest.
That's not individual value proposition. That's doing something good for everyone else. Right? Doing your part for everyone else. No, you want to know the value proposition? Your son can go sterile. I don't even know if you have a son, but what happens with mumps is you get a rash, I think you get a rash, you get like, you're really uncomfortable, it's terrible. But for young men, they can experience testicular swelling that literally makes them go sterile. Okay. Now you tell me that. I have 3 boys. You tell me that when I'm a young dad, I'm like, sterile? They're like, yeah, man, this is a clear side effect. Like, they won't die, but you're not having grandkids. I'm like, give me the shot. I'll give it to you myself. Like, but again, I'm not, whether you want the mumps shot or not, the point is public education, medical things that benefit instead of value proposition of do this good thing for the greater good, reframing our civic participation for individual value propositions. This is like this incredible, interesting thing we're coming into. It's like, this is a new age of understanding your participation in America.
Yeah, that's sort of a paradigm shift that I'll have to sort through on this. I was thinking about it a little differently in terms of like you brought up the collective, right?
Yes.
Which I don't think everything needs to collectively be government. I don't think the government needs to join together and do everything. I think we are missing some of the collective of choice by association sort of communities, whether that's churches or service groups or others. I think we're missing out on some of that as well in our society. And I think if we had more of that, I feel like there'd be a less need for government to step in to a bunch of these other actions.
Oh, sure. And to be clear, the public education is one, right? The medical freedom is another one, but that's not related to government, right? Mm-hmm. I think you are 100% right, which is giving a value proposition for community participation, right? And very unfortunately, I think a lot of that only comes after somebody's had to rely on it.
Sure.
Like they understand the value of community once they've been hurt. And they either the community was there or it wasn't there for them. And then they understand like, okay, this is why it takes a village, right? Like I didn't understand that until we went through the pandemic, where it was like, oh, this is why we need other people. Like I can't exist in my house by myself with like my 3 boys, like trying to raise them by me. Like this doesn't work. We need social reinforcements of cultural norms and behaviors.
Yeah. And, for whatever reason, as humans, we have to learn some of this by experience. Like you're talking about, right? Like sometimes we got to have those lows to understand, the highs or understand just how to be a better person.
Speaking of, you are working on other bills that are not quite as sexy and gangster as the gangster bill, but they deal with government transparency. This comes on the heels of releasing the JFK files.
Yeah.
Talk about going through a low and like wild, man. Come on. Like how do we go through with a value proposition for government in the absence of like now what we realize is a need for the ultimate transparency of the workings of the government?
Yeah. And I haven't gone through all those documents. I keep waiting. Everybody like tries to get AI to summarize it. And I haven't seen a really clear summary of what's all in there. So,
it is my understanding from Councilwoman Natalie Jangula from Nampa that she's been like, I guess she's had bets for like decades on this. And so I texted her last night and then I saw this thing this morning. She's like, it was the CIA. That's pretty wild.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Well, at least she really,
that's how
she sent me something with, there is some system that like she went through and there was highlighted like portions of CIA action. So yeah, I don't know. There's definitely going to be like, I should check right now. I guarantee you there's a Facebook page, a Facebook
all
post from
about
her.
it.
Yeah. But anyway, luckily we don't have to deal with quite that degree of transparency in Idaho, but you've also been working on other bills to enhance transparency. Talk to me about that.
Yeah. So I did a lot around looking at agencies and particularly how much cash they're sitting on. What are they doing with all that money? You know, are they spending it right? So just kind of bringing that forward. I really want, that's kind of a first step, kind of bring it out there, bring it forward, and then we can make some more policy decisions around, you know, how's the money being spent? Are they being good stewards with the cash? Do we need to adjust something? So I have more plans next year to look at even more different type of agencies. I keep running into more and more as you go out there. I think we're over like 200, maybe more, kind of like departments or agencies or divisions out there. And so there's a lot to look at and to dive into. So not as sexy, but
no. Well, but I think this is very timely too. I actually spoke with Representative Redmond. I think it was 2 days ago, and he was talking about, you know, Idaho Doge. Yeah. Right. So I think this is actually something that people have a thirst for, which is again transparency, lifting the veil. Like, where is the money going? What's the value proposition of continuing to spend, pay in taxes? Can you just help me understand where this money's going?
And it's, Idaho Doge, certainly. And it is about transparency. And I'm asking questions right now of some of these agencies to let them make their case, right? Hey, if you've got $1 million you're spending, show me the ROI on that. And maybe you have it. Maybe you have a really good ROI. Maybe you're saying, yeah, we're doing this and this for it. And it's, you know, doing all these things. Awesome. That's great. Just show it. Just bring it transparent. And then maybe just by asking the question, we're discovering maybe there's not, in certain cases, you know, really good return for the taxpayer dollar. So those are the things we want to look at more.
Yeah. What departments did you start with?
Departments?
Come on. You said you started with some departments. By the way, like just asking for transparency does not mean the departments are doing bad things. So like, this is not an accusation or an indictment. I'm just wondering.
I've started with the licensing boards. So I've done a lot around like de-licensing this year. And so then I started looking at the licensing boards that, you know, I'm a CPA. So I think my licensing fee is like $120 every year or something like that. And so it's like, let's go see what they're doing with my $120. Or collectively everybody's, you know, licensing fees that they pay into. So I can't name off the top of my head all the ones that I looked at, but there are some on both ends of the spectrum, some that are like performing well, doing good, others not so great, probably need additional scrutiny or maybe a new plan. So
like what? Like where's an excessive or a superfluous license?
Well, the ones I took care of this year, we took care of collectively. Makeup artist was one. So you previously had to have a license to be a makeup artist in Idaho.
Did that include face painter people?
I think it probably did if you read the definition of what a makeup artist was. So everybody at their school kids carnival.
Yeah.
Probably.
Or like neighborhood things.
Yeah.
A little butterfly on the face.
Probably breaking the law. But
yeah.
Not anymore.
My God. Good for them. We're going to make makeup artists great again. Okay,
that's right. Going. The other one, glamour shot photography.
Like glamour shots by Deb,
yes,
like from
totally
Napoleon
by Deb.
Dynamite.
If you go back and listen to the committee hearings, especially in the Senate, it was just Napoleon Dynamite jokes all around.
You're in an ocean, surrounded by little seahorses.
I think that one's going to turn out pretty nice. We had a good time with it. But
do you want to look like this? That's a woman. Because for a limited time.
That's a very Idaho thing. Glamour shots, right? So
that was in Idaho, though, right?
Yeah,
that was like 3 hours away. Napoleon Dynamite.
Yeah,
that's where it's filmed.
Yeah.
With like the sand dunes. She broke her coccyx.
Yeah, yeah. If you ever get Controller Brandon Wolf on, he's from there, so he should go give you a Napoleon Dynamite tour in Preston.
Dude, that's a great idea. Who's that? State Controller?
Yeah, Brandon Wolf.
Brandon Wolf. Is he related to Matt?
It might be a different spelling.
Or Lori?
No, they're different kinds of wolves.
With different kind of wolves.
Yeah.
Okay, state controllers.
Yeah.
Preston. Okay,
That'd
keep going.
Anyway, so that was one. I think that was one. We're like one of 2 states that regulated it. We don't regulate photographers. You don't have to be a licensed photographer, but you had to do for glamour shots. It just kind of seemed silly. So
let the free market work, baby. Does it look good or not?
Yeah, exactly on that one. And then there's another thermal hairstyling equipment dealers. So if you were selling like hair curlers or blow dryers or whatever, and you demonstrated them, you had to have a license. I think this was the one where nobody ever licensed. We started the license in 2018. 0 licenses. So I was like, why do we even have this license? So
Wait, 0 people applied?
0 people applied. I wasn't.
There are a lot of renegade hairstylist, heating apparatus operators out there.
Not anymore, I guess.
Yeah,
they're
not
free.
anymore.
They're
Free from the bondage of the licensing committee. Did you have anybody prosecuted for not being licensed?
No, there was 0 complaints against him, 0 action taken by this license.
Can we find out who in 2018 was like, this is it. This is how we're going to refine Idaho. Like, because somebody had to pass this license, like create this licensing board.
I wasn't there. The stories I've heard was they were concerned about the kind of pop-up shops in the mall. And I guess that was a thing, like where you would go sell. And,
like the mall kiosks?
Yeah, the mall kiosks. Yeah. Like they were doing that there. And I don't know if they all went out of business. We shut them all down. I think they probably all went online, honestly, instead of in the mall now. And so nobody ever got that license. Yeah.
Did you ever hang out at the mall when you were a kid?
Oh, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the thing.
The spot.
My wife and I were commenting, nobody does that anymore, really. Teenagers don't, I don't think. I'm not a teenager anymore.
Yeah. Well, look, I wouldn't be able to tell you because I've only been to the mall once, and it was to pick up I ordered a MacBook offline and then went in. It was pretty funny because I went into the Apple store and the gal's like, she's handing me over because I got an expensive MacBook, and she was like, what are you using this for? I was like, oh, I do a lot of video production and editing and stuff. And her eyes got wide. She's like, you're the only person in this whole store who deserves this MacBook. I was like, wow, why, thank you. She's like, people, and she got really animated. She's like, people in here, they just want to like check Facebook and do Google Docs. She's like, you don't need this machine. I'm like, cool, man. Like, I'm a go. Can I just have my MacBook? I'm like stealing it from her.
Passionate about her MacBook, I guess.
Yeah. So this is how cool Matt is. When I was 14 going to homecoming, like we finished dinner. Okay. And I took my date to like the spaghetti factory or something. Heather Collins. Yeah. Nice. Or no, it was Rachel Laza. It doesn't matter.
You still remember that?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there it is, Rachel. She wore a forest green dress. Anyway, the point is that Rachel and I and then our other 2 friends, we had like an hour lag in between dinner, finishing like my noodles. Had the dance. So we went to the mall. We were walking around the mall all dressed up as like these 14-year-olds. How embarrassing, man. Oh, man.
Oh that was God. The thing. And then we would go the food courts. That was a thing, right? In the mall. Sbarro Pizza. Did that exist anywhere else outside of the mall?
I don't think so. Yeah, that was that in Cinnabon.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, Louis C.K. has a pretty crass bit about Cinnabon. I'm not going to recount it because it's pretty bad, but it was pretty damn funny. Cinnabon, it seems like Cinnabon and Krispy Kreme were the two like real fad sugar things that just they were hot and then they got hammered because people were like, what are we doing? Like, this is terrible. It's like Krispy Kreme just came in strong and then everybody got excited. And then they're like, these donuts suck. Like, we were just excited about seeing the automated donut machine.
Yeah, exactly. Hype cycle.
Yeah, hype cycle. Yep. I've never heard of that. That's good. Okay, so delicensing, gangster bill, transparency with departments, anything else?
Man, what else have I worked on? A few tax bills here and there, cleaning some things up. So
nothing crazy?
Nah, nothing crazy. Nothing crazy.
But you've done like you're getting like 15-ish across the line signed by the governor, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. About halfway there, and another 6, I think, sitting on his desk right now. So hopefully he signs those.
Dude, you've done some work this session. Like you've done real work that may not be sexy, but it's like we're streamlining things, taking things out of code. We're getting there.
My philosophy is if I'm going to be here, I'm going to work hard and get something done to help the people of Idaho. So that's what I want to do.
My gosh, the spirit of a CPA. It ain't sexy, but it works.
It's the old farm boy in me. So
that's awesome. I didn't know you grew up in a farm.
Yeah, I did. Eastern Idaho.
From like Meridian.
That's where I live now. But my wife and I both grew up in Shelley.
Gotcha.
So home of the Russets. So
Russets.
We literally were potatoes. for our high school mascot. So,
Look at you
yeah.
guys. That's
So-
awesome. Well, listen, man, is there anything we should be looking forward to? I hope the gangster bill gets passed. Is there anything else we should be looking forward to, looking to let next? Oh, first off, before we finish up, we talked about a lot about the AI committee last time. Have you guys determined anything or like come up with any, concrete ideas, or has it just been like fielding these various ideas?
It's mostly fielding ideas right now. We certainly want to, and I was just talking with some folks today about getting committee meetings back going, and coming up with some real policy recommendations. So first for the state government, got to get our own house in order, and then broadly. There's been a couple ideas floated out there, nothing that's gotten legs.
Okay.
And then, other states are doing things. We're watching them. I just learned today. So Colorado, I guess last year passed this whole like AI framework. And then apparently this year they decided, no, that wasn't what we wanted to do. So they're going back to fix it.
Gotcha.
So we also want to try to avoid that, where we like just get ahead of our skis and we're like, nope.
Yeah. Move too quickly.
So we're still taking time to study it, and make sure we're going in the right direction for what we want to do, and still be sort of pro-business, pro-market, pro-technology.
Right, because we don't have to, unless there's a compelling reason for like emergency action right now, we don't have to be the first to adopt policy. Like we could go through a couple sessions and let good things and bad things and fallout and unintended consequences play out in other places and be like, all right, year 3, pen a little something or other.
Yeah, that's certainly an approach. Not necessarily being the first mover. So
right.
Sometimes in legislation, being the first mover may not always have advantages.
Especially with something as new as this.
Something as new as this.
Because in the next 12 months, like in the next 24 months, it could look completely different.
Yeah, exactly. So it could adapt different ways. And then, the law that we put on the books may be totally obsolete. Already.
Yeah. I had Reed Stefanen, who is part of the Idaho Tech Council. And he's also working on digital literacy for Idaho education. And I did not understand how education was looking at AI in particular. You hear a lot of people talk about AI as ruining things like take-home essays. The quick answer to that is just make them write them in class.
Yeah, put them in class and do it.
Things of that nature. But the utilization, the upregulation of skill sets based on AI. We were talking.
Yes.
Talking about industries developing where you have a prompt engineer. That's one thing he said. It's like because the real value of AI isn't that it can just do anything. The real, or for a person, the value of AI for me is not like I say, hey, make a business, because then it's like, well, okay, here's your garbage business. It's like, well, no, I don't want to be in the garbage business. But the skill set in using it is really unique and niche, because you have to be really clear and really specific and dive down to be able to tweak it. And so he was like, yeah, prompt engineer, like somebody who gets really good at telling AI exactly the right prompt and hitting it the exact right way, so it produces a functional, valuable outcome instead of just make a business. Oh, you're in the garbage business now.
Yeah, I agree. Like we need to have some upskill in workforce, I think, around this. I think that's really important. Prompt engineering is big, because the value is, like you said, getting it clear, and it's that translation or the communication with the tool, right? Somebody that really knows how to give input and then to make sure the output is correct, so that you're not just being fed, partially accurate stuff, or maybe you need to refine it after your query. And so I totally think that's a skill set. Well, that's very relevant right now, actually.
Yeah. I had a buddy years ago who sent me this video on house framing, and it was these old timey guys, framing out houses, because I'm big into construction. I really enjoy building things. And anyway, the point is, these guys had these basic hammers, right? And they were like setting nails, and it was like, boom, boom. And you're talking like a 3-inch nail, just slapping it in, right? And these two guys moved so quickly through framing out a house with just a hammer and a bag of nails. And it's a similar kind of thing, which is like, if you hand somebody a hammer, you're like, hey, you can build a whole house with this. And they're like, well, how? It's like, Well, that's a great question. You got to develop the skill set with the tool. You have to make the tool be something that integrates with you seamlessly, and then your efficiency goes through the roof. And it's very obvious from a construction standpoint, but this is another thing with like these infinite skill sets where it's like, no. If you can have a skill around AI like these guys had around a hammer, you can do anything.
Yeah.
Like you can at least cognitively.
Yeah, you can. And I think you become more productive, more efficient, all those things. That reminded me of a story for whatever reason around this.
I love stories.
Well, so in our revenue and tax committee, we didn't have, some committees do remote testimony like over Zoom, and others just you have to be in person. I think I saw you in person one day.
Indeed, you probably did.
Okay. Is that public knowledge? Do we say that on this podcast?
I mean, I hung out in the Capitol.
Okay.
Like I testified multiple times and went places and yeah. Like, it's fine.
Okay, cool.
Like I can tell you right now, I testified in favor of the Parent Tech Awareness Bill, which would have mandated in the state of Idaho that if you're a public school system or you're a public charter school and you distribute internet-based technology to public school or charter school kids, you have to meaningfully warn and educate parents about the risk inherent in that. I'm in favor of that. I think it's a parents' rights issue. I think the state of Idaho knows right now, as sure as day, that children are being harmed off of school-administered technology. There's no obligation to warn people. And in fact, very few, if any, schools do warn people about the actual risk, and they're still distributing tech. I testified in favor of that. I like to stay neutral in most politics, but damn it, man, that's a good one. It did not pass House Ed. Okay. Lost 7-6. Okay. Breaks my heart.
Well,
there's always next year.
Always next year. That's the eternal optimist. So where are we going? Oh, testifying. So some people do it in person, others, so revenue and tax, said, hey, you could write in and we'll read some of them. If you can't make it down to Boise to the Capitol, we'll read it. That was, the policy. Sure. And so like they're having people read it, but I thought, you don't really want to do that. Like what if you're reading something you don't really agree with? Yeah. And now it's your voice that's forever recorded, to be used.
Right.
Against you. Anyway, so I showed them like how you can just have the computer read it, and they're actually pretty good at like sounding like a human. And you can do male and female voices. So revenue and tax is doing that. And then the other day we did it in our agriculture committee. They just had the computer read it. So
there you go.
Anyways, another little use case.
I think Representative Hill's cell phone voicemail is like an Australian female or something, or he's like, it's a Siri or something. It's pretty dang funny. He flies a lot. So I'm like, maybe it's a thing because he's like, down under a bunch.
Yeah, maybe it is. Maybe it syncs to wherever he's at.
Yeah. The Siri, like, because you can make the Series all kinds of crazy things. But the funny thing is then they can't understand you because they're expecting you have like, like an Irish accent.
Yeah.
You can't.
That's funny. That's like when my kids use like, the voice activated stuff and they're like, what was that? What did you say?
It's pretty funny, man. Anyway, awesome. Well, listen, thank you for what you're doing for the state of Idaho. I know some of the things you go after aren't sexy and crazy, but like, damn it, man, we need those things, right? Like we need people looking at numbers and we need people looking for efficiencies and eliminating superfluous licenses like face paint licensing and whatnot and curler iron demonstration.
I got some more next year. So
that's fantastic.
Yep.
Anything we missed?
No, I think that's it, Matt. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for coming on. I appreciate you. Let's listen, here's the thing. Okay. And I'm serious about this. There's a burger battle in May with the Idaho Beef Council.
Okay.
And I'm doing stuff with the Eagle Chamber of Commerce and the Boise Metro Chamber of Commerce. And there are people up in Coeur d'Alene that want to be in on it. So if you have a favorite burger place in Meridian, let's get the restaurant to register for the beef battle, the burger battle. And we'll go, you and I can go and do like a show in the restaurant and like eat the burgers. So if you have a favorite burger place, Meridian, let me know.
Okay, let's talk.
All right, sounds good, man. Thanks for coming in. Appreciate you.
Okay, thanks, Matt.